Well, hello and a very warm welcome back to the TNC podcast. It's Jack Reeve, it's Chris Reeve, and for once joined with someone with a bit of technical experience. It's former Norwich City technical director.
Good morning.
Ricky Martin. I'm glad we've got you on, Ricky. We've flirted with the idea for seemingly years, and you're a hard man to get hold of nowadays.
We have been flirting for a while, but no, yeah, it's really good, and thank you for the invite.
On a serious note, Jack, it is the ideal time for Ricky to come on now because there's a lot of talk about the inner workings of Norwich City Football Club, this kind of trusting the process, transitions, young players, and Ricky's background within Norwich City Football Club alone. It'll be interesting to get your take on it, sir.
And you're ageing remarkably well, Ricky, because I must say, when I was going back through all of your work and I was looking at sort of BBC articles and EP articles, and it was like, 14 years ago. I'm like, surely it wasn't that long ago, was it? You're looking well, mate.
No, thank you. No, it's been a great time, and the 16 years at the club was one of the best moments of my career so far, and it really helped me to set up what I was doing, and it was a great period of my career.
So just for the Norwich fans watching, and maybe some of the younger ones that don't know you, Ricky, with love and respect.
No, they're fine.
When did you start? When did you finish? Give us an overview of your background and your track record at Norwich City, because I think people find it really interesting. I bet you they don't know half the stuff you've done.
No, they wouldn't. No. So I joined in 2001. I came from Cambridge United at the time. Joined, and my first walk round Colney was with Bob Cooper, former chairman of the club, and got a chance to join Nigel Worthington, was the manager at the time. So joined the club then in the academy, assistant academy manager, and then 2017 I walked out the door. So nearly 16 years later, it was a great period, and I did several different positions. I had 3 jobs at the club. I was assistant academy manager for a couple of years. Then I did 10 years as academy manager, and then I finished off the last 3 years as a technical director.
And even just very top line view at those dates, the amount that football would have changed between 2001 and 2016. And even looking from 2025 where we are now back to 2016, that decade, it seems like things have just gone from gear to gear as well. I mean, talk about kind of pivoting and having to adapt. You must have been constantly having to be on the front foot.
Yeah, and everything was evolving, and it was getting more and more professionalised. It was getting increasing the work and the level of detail that we were working at. But there was also some key milestones in that journey as well for me. I can really recall some things that stood out. Obviously, EPPP was a big one. The club going for Category 1.
Just quickly talk through that, because I remember that process and I remember it being a big thing. And it almost feels like people have forgotten that Norwich City were so advanced and still remain so advanced.
Yeah, that was under David McNally, chief exec at the time, was speaking to me, and we were doing well as an academy, but we felt we needed some more investment, but more focus on the youth development programme. And David was a great supporter of it, and he said the only way we're going to do that is by going for Category 1. So it was a big ask at the time.
I bet,
People don't realise the training ground wasn't developed. We had the big hill at the back with all the mud where all the slope, and we didn't have the facilities, and we weren't ready for it, but we felt we need to get that status, because then we could then have catch up with all the facilities and everything else and staffing levels.
On the Cat 1 status, Ricky, just so people understand, right? So before, Norwich City could only bring in young players within 90 minutes drive of Colney, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Which gets you to about Acle or something, doesn't it?
or where you are, Dodgy Yarmo. Anyway, now we've been able to, obviously, since you helped the club achieve that, amongst other people, of course, I'm sure you'd say, we're now able to dip into the London markets, etc. And what's, I think, amazing about some of the work that you did, Ricky, is it unlocked the door to recruit players like Jamal Lewis, like Maxi Aarons, Ben Godfrey. There's loads, I'm sure. So that was so big for the club, wasn't it?
John Rowe and people like that.
Johnny Rowe.
So what it gave us was national recruitment. That's one of the big buy-ins to go in Cat 1, and the games programme. So you're creating a best environment. So your games programme every weekend is top level. And you can see what the 26 now, I think, Cat 1 clubs the under-18s and under-21s play week in, week out, some of the best players in the country. So that's what it gave, but the recruitment was definitely number one. We could tap into that, start bringing players in further afield, but also you had staffing structure, you had to meet minimum requirements. So that enabled the academy to go and then develop and get the best people. So you got people like Paul Nevin come over as the head of coaching, who's gone on and worked with Gareth Southgate in the England national team, but he was the head of coaching coming in and looking after the academy. So that's the type of people. You have Greg Broughton, who's now sporting director at Chicago Fire. He was the head of recruitment for the academy. So they were the type of people we were attracting and we were bringing in. We didn't know how good them staff were going to be. It's like when you're forming like players, you just get in, but you could really feel the connection and really feel the quality. And Neil Adams was within the youth ranks there as well as a coach coming through. So we were really fortunate. We had some great people. Really connected, but then we started to really get some top players, and like you said, having them players coming through the system was really pivotal. And then the FA Youth Cup, that then followed, and it then just got momentum, and then we got a reputation, and we started to then attract some really good young players.
I was so glad when you said Ricky was coming on, Chris, because I remember that period, FA Youth Cup, Premier League under Paul Lambert, and just feeling like anything was possible, and there was success coming from every period. I remember going to the Chelsea games in the FA Youth Cup and huge turnouts, unbelievable success for Norwich City, and it felt like the people within and the fans and the community around Norfolk, it felt like we were really putting ourselves on the map. It must have been an unbelievable feeling internally during that kind of period in our history.
And there was little signs and shoots of that coming just before. So we had a couple of schoolboy games, what we played Celtic at Carrow Road.
Right.
We got about 7,000 for an under 15 game. It was just ridiculous. And we played Man United at under 15s, I can remember as well. So we started to do some initiatives like that, and it just grew from there. But the FA Youth Cup that night at Carrow Road for the under 18s will be a special moment. And then obviously winning it away at Stamford Bridge with so many of Norwich fans come down, because the day before we just beat West Brom.
That's right, yeah.
Just to keep safety and keep our status in the Premier League. So then that was a really good moment for then all the fans then jumped on the back of that and then brought them clappers down to Stamford Bridge. And,
the infamous clappers.
And we took over it was a great day and a great night, and the board came down. I can remember seeing Didier and Michael after the game, and they were so proud. And you just you got the owners of the football club come all the way down to London on a Monday night to watch the second leg. It was really powerful.
That was the West Brom. Just you cast get on my back now. I think that was the only thing that Luciano Becker did for our football club. It was West Brom, wasn't it? He did that amazing assist for was it Johnny House or something? Yeah. Brilliant. Ricky, you went from then academy manager. You were the trailblazer in terms of that the new position at the football club, which was then obviously went into Stuart Webber's role as sporting director. You were technical director.
Yeah.
So when you went from your position to board level, football board level, I'm interested to know just how new and how much there was to do, because I was watching back your kind of announcement video, God knows, I think it was like 10 years ago or something, sorry.
Yeah.
As Jack says, you've not aged, so well done. And I was just like, and I think you said something like, it's completely new, it's a blank piece of paper, I think was the terminology.
Yeah.
So I just can't imagine how much work there was to do.
It was like you didn't know where to start, you didn't know where to finish. It was, but what we were trying to do is just replicate some of the work that had been done in the academy, and that's what the club could see, that there was a structure in place, processes and procedures in place for the academy, and we just wanted to replicate that in the first team, because unfortunately it wasn't happening for whatever reason. Players had different schedules, and you'd look at maybe like argue why was that in place, but football was just a bit different then, and it was just needed to have a little bit more of a structure, and that's what we provided. So we came on. I came on board and took that kind of challenge on, and it was first season was a really interesting season, because we had a change of manager at the time. That's what they were called. So Neil started with myself, Neil Adams. So he started, and then obviously there's a change at Christmas time, which wasn't easy, because someone that I've worked with really closely and someone I've known for many years. And then we brought Alex Neil in, and then we went on an unbelievable run, and then ended up at Wembley. So end of my first season, it weren't bad at all because...
So that was the first season?
That was my first season.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and the playoffs were crazy because we weren't an easy route through having Ipswich both legs.
Well, that's an easy game, Ipswich.
So, and I could just sense it as the season was unfolding. Remember the Middlesbrough game at home where Alex Tettey scores the own goal and they win 1-0, and that was pivotal because if we'd won that, I think we would have probably got a chance to go in the automatic. But that killed them chance, and the way Middlesbrough celebrated in front of us, I just sensed we were going to get them. But I thought we might have got them in the playoffs, in the semi-finals, but weren't to be. And it was Ipswich and then Middlesbrough, and we had a lesson to tell them, and it was fantastic. And
what was the buy-in like from Alex Neil at the time? Because he's become quite an established kind of Championship manager, but he was a 30-something-year-old from Hamilton at the time,
exactly.
and it was a risk it felt like a risk from Norwich City. I suspect it was all very new for him. You've gone from working with someone you're very aware of. That must have been an interesting few months for you, just to try and get a message across and get buy-in. And what was that like?
I think you're exactly right. I think it was new, but it was also fresh. So I think we came and we attacked it because we're all new to the kind of this level of football and the detail we wanted to go for. So I think we just had a real can-do attitude that, come on, we can do this. And we just went on an amazing run. And it was like, why not just win this game and win next game? And the run of games and victory. And I can remember his first game as well. We were at Bournemouth away.
That's right,
yes.
And it wasn't going too well. And he said he's going to sit upstairs with me.
That's right, yeah.
And then 25 minutes, I look round and he's not there, and he's down by the touchline and he's shouting and I thought, okay, he's going to have an impact. I can see this already. And you just felt that energy, and you felt that he's had that connection with the players straight away, but he just knew how to get results. And that ultimately turned. We had a good squad. So he knows that as well. He knows he was inheriting a very good squad. We've done some good recruitment over that summer, leading up to it, bringing some good players into the club, but also having some good players, unfortunately, from coming down. But that's never easy.
No, I was going to say, how many times do you see Championship teams with good squads that end up doing nothing? And as you say, players getting relegated, they think they're still worthy of Premier League football, and there's a bit of a chip on the shoulder. I mean, to rally a team like that, there was some pretty experienced heads in that side. It was,
Well, you got 2 Premier League managers in that team. So you had Gary O'Neill and Russell Martin.
Blimey,
So you had 2 Premier League managers in there that are going to go. So they were football people, and I think Alex had that connection with them and was able to connect with them and lean on them as leading players and senior players who also had an understanding of what the game looked like, because they were already probably starting to process this kind of what does it look like for them later in their career. And then you had some other great human beings in there and great players, and the team from goal all the way through and the bench as well. It was just such a strong squad. And I remember we did Graham Dorrans, who came in that window, but we had to delay the signing. So there's some things like fans will realise we did a loan. If you can remember, we were trying to sign him on deadline day, and we couldn't do it straight away for out of West Brom. So we signed him on loan, but there's a period you can only sign him if he came on loan at that time, a number of days. And we worked out that if we signed him on end of January, he would have missed the end part of the playoffs. So we delayed his signing to count in the final.
Oh, really?
So that he could then be registered for the final. So things like that, because he got announced that he was coming in, but the deal didn't go through, and then it got announced 2 weeks later. But we'd already signed him, but we started it a couple of weeks later. So there's lots of things like that were going on behind the scenes, and decisions having to be made. And then probably the biggest one was the hotel at Wembley was the big one that we got right, and we got all our travel, we all our kind of...
Post-match as well.
Post-match was very good, but pre-match was probably the
Talk us through that, because I'd love to hear it from you. I think Russ has told the story.
So many people have told us the hotel story.
But I want to hear it from your side, because it always puts a smile on my face, this.
Just the way we were just basically, before the Ipswich game, so people don't know this, I'm breaking news here, but before the second leg, I paid and we booked the hotel for the final.
Oh, so you'd done it before we'd actually got there?
Correct.
Oh, that was a punchy decision then.
Yeah, and it was sworn between, there's only a couple of people in the room that this cannot get out, because if this gets out, that we've already got unsecured, because we were playing a day after Brentford.
Yes, yeah.
And playing Middlesbrough. So that was they were playing the Wednesday and we were playing on the Thursday. So we couldn't wait until the day after the
That's the kind of thing we're doing it. We always talk about, book the hotel. Yeah. Ricky was itching doing that in the boardroom. Book the hotel.
What would have happened? I know we're sort of rewriting history. What would have happened if we hadn't have beaten Ipswich there? And you still had the hotel? You were just going to go for a jolly?
No, I'm not going to take 38 of my friends. I think we had 38 rooms and a postmat, and it would have just been lost. Or we would have probably sold it on.
Right.
So we would have had access to that, and we would have sold it on reluctantly to probably Middlesbrough.
But in fairness, it was a pretty easy bet, wasn't it, us to beat Ipswich in the playoff semi-final?
Yeah, we were 1-1 in after the home leg, and we were confident. And it weren't just
I love that.
It was also the way we were playing at the time. We were in a really good form. So yeah, and then obviously the day we turned up, and it was like we were in the tunnel going out, and players were warming up, and they weren't here. And it was a little bit challenging for us as well, because it's like anything, when you know something's not quite right, you're like, are they turning up? Are they
got the wrong day?
Are they coming to the final? Like it was bizarre.
It was.
They were in chaos before the game. There were tickets flying everywhere. There was phone calls. It was really, you could sense they weren't ready for the game, and we within 19 minutes were 2-0 up, and
cruised.
As soon as Nathan Redmond scored that goal, I knew that we've got every chance to secure this.
If Norwich City fans want to, especially at the moment, given the where we're going to end up this season, if you want to reminisce some good times, go and watch back my TNC podcast exclusive with Cameron Jerome, because he talks about the bus on the way to Wembley, what the Middlesbrough fans did, the fact they were late. So it's really interesting. Yeah. Ricky, as we transition now into today and obviously the Oxford draw,
I wish we could keep talking about that.
For sure. No. But I want to draw upon your insights, your wisdom, your experience, Ricky, because actually it's really interesting, because there is this ongoing debate around youth and experience, and then linking that to Wembley, which there's a lot of experience in that side, and now that's almost villainized, essentially, these experienced players. So it'll be interesting to see what you say, and specifically because one of our experienced players, Jack, which is a talking point, Shane Duffy, he was late, wasn't he?
Well, Ricky, I'm really interested to get your thoughts on the transition into this season, where you think things are going. Shane Duffy, for me, has been somewhat of a revelation. He's gone from the man that was always kind of put on the chopping block for being at fault, and actually he's been pretty successful for the most part this season. He's been a fairly solid part of that back line. Dropped. Look, Norwich, I think we need to wrap the context around all of this. Norwich City have had no consistency whatsoever in terms of starting 11s. Yeah. I think I saw there's been 35 different starting 11s out of 36 games. Something stupid, and that's difficult to build momentum. Yeah. Shane Duffy's been one of those that has been that solid rock. Now, he was dropped from Friday night's game. At the start, we didn't know why. We assumed it was disciplinary reasons. Johannes came out and said he was late for the team meeting. We've obviously been through that drama with Jose Cordoba already this season. Shane Duffy himself then comes out on Twitter, I think in response to Rob Butler, and says, I was stuck in traffic, I was late. Hold my hands up, it's kind of out of my control. Yeah. These are big decisions for the management and Johannes to make. And look, he's had so many tough calls with John Rowe and Adam Eder at the start of the campaign, and Gabi Sara. So he's not going to get all of them right. But this one felt like that's a big call to be making, and difficult for him, I guess. Yeah,
he would have had his line of where his consistency is around his management style. And if he goes over that line, then that's probably why he's made that decision, because he will have his way of processing disciplinary actions like this. If it was a training day, he might have looked at it differently, because it wouldn't have impacted. But on a match day, going into a team meeting, you can imagine he's standing at the front of the room waiting to do the team meeting, and his centre back's not in the room.
What do you think like Shane's teammates, the players, will be thinking of that? Because I assume they'll be prepping for this game, thinking that Shane's starting. You've got Cordoba and Fisher thinking that they're going to be next to Shane, and then he's not in there. That must be disruptive for the team as well.
It is, but also, like you said, there's been so many changes, so they're not used to it. It's not like as if it's a settle back four. That this is our game. This is we're like the invincibles of a back four. Do you know what I mean? They've just had so many different combinations. So I don't think that would have happened. You also would have had McLean being pulled out because he just had his FA ban down at Portsmouth, and so that's happened already this season. And unfortunately, the way the games are as well, and we've seen it. You get players on the day still getting tested for making sure that they're fit and they're ready to go. Illness happens on the day. Do you know what I mean? So there is variables that do come out that means a team has to change. And you got one extreme when we had Russell Martin's wife goes into labour, and so do you know what I mean? So you've got lots of different examples of where the team can change on the day. So I think the players are quite robust and they're quite flexible to that. I don't think it would have affected them as much. I just think the manager would have had his stance of, this is where my discipline is, this is where my line is. I've already acted like this already on another case, so I've got to be seen.
Jose Cordoba,
yeah, I've got to be consistent.
I think the thing is, lads, is it's been really highlighted, this decision, isn't it? Because Oxford's goal, Brexit football, long throw. It was Brexit football, let's be honest. Long throw. Fair play to them, play to your strengths. And it's been highlighted because I think if Shane Duffy is in that position, that goal doesn't happen. And it's an absolute cataclysmic chaos in the box, isn't it? Because you've got Sorensen that has decided to not jump. You've got Jack Stacey that's half-headed the ball. You've got Jose Cordoba in there, all going for the same ball. I think if the leadership of Shane Duffy's in there, it doesn't happen, and that's why it's been highlighted.
I think it just comes back, Ricky, doesn't it, to consistency. I look back to those promoted squads that you would have been involved with, and it always felt like you had your 11 that you were used to. You could drop people in. I mean, we're rocking up at 5-2 at Carrow Road going, I couldn't name you the starting 11 today. I don't have a clue. And that must be, well, it is just, if you haven't got that consistency running through, it is really difficult, particularly in that defensive line.
Yeah, I do agree. There's been a lot of changes in the team. Injuries and illnesses this season have been probably unprecedented. Unprecedented in what they've had to deal with. So hopefully, I'm sure they'd all want that, a little bit of consistency going into next season.
Just on that, sorry, Chris, the injuries and the disciplinary we'll put to one side because within certain reasons that's within our control. I've got the sense and I feel a vibe around the place at the moment where we've had so many injuries this season where you go from being unlucky to what could we do differently? I mean, you were heading up sports science for a bit, so you'll know a lot about that area. I'm going to go out and say I think Norwich City should be doing more. We're clearly doing something wrong at the moment for the fact that we've got so many players out injured at so many occasions. Lewis Dobbins, the one that really angered me recently, pulls up with a calf injury, pulled off next game, comes on, out for the season. It's little things like that where you go, surely that's in our control to manage.
And Ricky, to double up on Jack's point to you is, what do you do about that? Because now there's fan pressure saying, well, the sports science department are incompetent, they can't do their jobs, and I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, there's a degree of bad luck, isn't there? Of course, there's a degree of you have to, because of the amount of normal injuries, they've had to play players more, and then that's caused more injuries. What do you do in that position?
It is really tough because, and certainly as a leader and someone that oversees all the different departments, that's probably one of the things that you really get anxious about because you're kind of watching training, you're thinking just finish training, no injuries today, just finish training. And you want to get through week by week because you just want to get momentum. But what I find, what sometimes doesn't get kind of talked about is it's like you imagine you're on a treadmill. So the treadmill is running and you're running on the treadmill and someone comes along to you and he has to jump on that treadmill or she has to jump on that treadmill and get going. That's really hard. You've seen someone try and jump on a moving treadmill. They and that's what it's like a player coming back into a game environment when you're going week in, week out. How do you get them ready? You can't stop the treadmill and get them on and build them up again. They need to just jump back into it. And that's probably where the toughest bit. Where you get in pre-season, that's fine because you're building it up slowly, okay? And everyone's in, everyone's off, 45 minutes here, 60 minutes there, and it's really kind of relaxed and it's kind of stable, okay? But when you're going in season and you're dropping somebody in, there is a massive element of risk there because the momentum's going and you don't know how that player's going to react. And when you look at, and I heard about Dobbins' injury, it's his different calf, so it's not but that'll be an imbalancing issue because he's like anything. When you have we used to laugh that you start with a blister, right, and it can end up affecting your shoulder because you start to walk differently, you start to then do things different because you've got a blister, and all of a sudden you start to then put pressure on your shoulder, and you think, just because of this blister I've now hurt my shoulder because I'm now not walking, I'm now like trying to lean over and I'm trying to do different steps. And so sometimes it's where you get injuries it can have an impact in other parts of your body. But I think the biggest message I'd get out there is just trying to drop an elite professional footballer into a games program that's already up and running. That's probably the biggest challenge you have as a head coach and sports scientist, because and I think I've heard him say that he's trying to get them up to speed. He's trying to get them up to speed in track. You can't replicate what it's like on a match day.
Speak of dropping players in, Ricky, and risk being involved, I want to ask you about probably the biggest decision element of who was on the team sheet going to the Oxford game. Young goalkeeper, 21-year-old goalkeeper Vicente Reyes has been given a chance to be in between the sticks at Norwich City Football Club. Angus Gunn's out injured. He's been smashed in the face by his Scottish counterpart. Don't get me started on that because I'll swear. I'm trying to keep professional for you.
Yeah, it's fine.
George Long is injured as well. So Vicente Reyes is given opportunity. As a young player and as someone that's led young players, what are the thoughts and feelings looking at that and going, oh my God, just have a good game?
Yeah, you are. And everyone at the club and all the coaching staff have been confident. He's a young player that's got loads of talent. So they've been really confident he's good enough to play, because he wouldn't have been around the squads, and he's been around the squad the last couple of weeks because George Long's not been involved in all the squads. So he's been the number 2 goalkeeper. So I think but when you get that final chance, you got fingers crossed and you're just hoping he has a good game and doesn't have to deal with any scenarios that are out of his reach. And I think he dealt with the game well, and I think he will get a few more games. I call this, Chris, for you, accidental opportunities. And that's what, as a young player, as an academy manager and someone that's developing young people, that's all you're looking for. Accidental opportunities. And ones I saw in my time were probably Jamal, regarding how he got an opportunity out on first team tour. We used to take the 21s and the first team side by side, and he played in a game, and the first team players were watching, and they thought, wow, he's unbelievable, running up and down.
Really? So the players kind of...
just everyone, the coaching staff, the players were watching. He's playing for the under-21s, and then at the end of the tour, he plays in the first team on the bench, and Alex put him on the game, and then he never went back with the academy again. He came back, and that was what I call an accidental opportunity.
And another example of an accidental opportunity, Maxi Aarons, because Pinto gets injured.
Exactly.
Maxi Aarons comes in. Russ Martin seriously backed him. I know that you all know that. And Russ Martin was a big reason why he actually stayed at the football club. I'm sure you were as well, Ricky. Others didn't rate him. Some people did rate him. So that's another. And by the way, hey, we always have a hashtag of the podcast to see if our listeners are listening. So we want to see it on social media this week. Take a picture of your screen, wherever you're watching, listening to the TNC podcast. The hashtag of the week is hashtag accidental opportunity, forged by Ricky Martin.
There you go.
Love it.
I guess though, Ricky, Norwich it's an accidental opportunity in the sense of, things have to happen but they've recalled Vicente from Cambridge. They've clearly seen something in him. Yeah. And Vicente will need to be in a position when this opportunity arises. It always feels particularly difficult for goalkeepers to get that opportunity. I think back to, I think it was under Daniel Farker when Aston Oxford had been at the club for so long and never quite got the opportunity. The opportunity comes, breaks his finger in training in the week, and then it's done brilliantly away from Norwich. But small margins, isn't it, away from
and that's what I'm talking about, these little opportunities for someone to get that. And once you give a 17, I know he's 21, I think,
Vicente, he's very young,
21. So, but as a goalkeeper, that's still really young. But when you're talking about outfield players, sometimes they're only 17, 18. They're getting their chance, and they're not ready, they're not the finished article, but they just need that opportunity to be around the team. And then once they get that, like Max did and people like that, Ben Godfrey, I can remember him getting chucked in at Ipswich away and playing in a derby game. And I was there watching the game. It was after I left the club, and I was like, wow, that's really good and really brave of Daniel Farke at the time. So you could just see, once you give this belief in them, they just grow confidence.
We don't like to talk about him anymore, though, for obvious reasons.
No.
One of the things that I think is linked to this point around, giving young players an opportunity, #accidental opportunities, and linked to your point earlier about the injuries, about the imbalance.
Yeah.
I think potentially, and it'd be interesting to get your thoughts too, Jack, there's almost this imbalance that's been happening throughout the season because Norwich City have dropped how many points from winning positions? And is that, Ricky, because we've been playing too many young players? Yeah. Have we gone the other way now? Because at the end of Stuart Webber's time, it was very evident that we'd gambled is perhaps a strong word, but we'd placed a lot of emphasis on we need to buy experienced players to get back up. Now it feels like we've gone the other way. Your take on that? And is that why we're dropping points from winning positions?
Yeah, I think there's also another element. I think the league is so competitive. So it is a mad league. The Championship is probably one of the toughest leagues in Europe, in the top 5 leagues of who can beat who. And you look at Plymouth, will go on and win some games this season, and they're bottom of the table. And when you look at other leagues, the bottom of the table doesn't normally carry on winning, but you could easily see Plymouth getting out of it, and they're bottom. But you go across in Italy and France and Spain, you look in their second division, so the bottom team will be the bottom team, and they'll be cut adrift and maybe even the second from bottom, where this league, all 24 teams can beat each other. So I think the competition is really quite challenging. And then I think that isn't easy for teams to give away leads. Regarding why Norwich are doing it now, that must be saying that they're just searching because they're just losing too many points. And they're dropping too many points. And it could be an age, definitely. It could be an experience, but it could also just be sometimes having that mentality, they need to go and get the second goal or the third goal. So if you go and get 2 goals up, then 1 goal doesn't matter so much. So I felt the other night against Oxford, I thought they had a great opportunity to go and get the second and third,
for sure.
But they didn't kick on. And
is that a mindset thing? Because I think that plays into the we're not giving up many chances.
No.
I look back to Preston, sloppy goal. Oxford, sloppy
They're
goal.
all sloppy.
Derby County, Jack Stacey.
When was the last time a good goal was scored against us this season? I can't remember a good goal being scored against us this season.
Burnley, when he sort of thwacked one in top corner from 30.
Yeah, but like one in how many games? They're all just sloppy goals.
Yeah, it feels like it's our doing, which is kind of exciting in the fact that we're the controllers of our own downfall because you can change that. But I'm in complete agreement, Rick, and I think other Norwich fans will be. We get ahead, we look good for 10 minutes, and then we just regress. And I'm like, why can we not? We either win 4-5-1, which we've done multiple times, or we don't go on to win. We can't win a game 1 or 2-0. It's seemingly impossible for us.
Yeah, I just think that having that mentality to go and attack them and go and try and finish them off, that would be the way I think they need to go going forward. Because I think if they go back to them days of getting 3 or 4 goals, then I think there's such a difference in the atmosphere, the performance of the team, but also that confidence where everyone will have that they will hold on to get a victory. But I think if you go 1-0 and you're a little bit edgy, a little bit, you can hear it in the crowd, you know what's coming, everyone can sense it, and I think you just got to change that mindset.
I think that you mentioned earlier about that kind of Wembley side. You had a Gary O'Neill in the dressing room and a Russell Martin in the dressing room.
Alex Tete.
It doesn't. We've got a few of those, and I'm certainly not saying that we don't have that character because I think we do. But they were key kind of components, Chris, weren't they? And you look back to all of the promotion campaigns, whether it was under Farke with a Zimmerman or someone like that,
But this is the thing. Like we go one way or the other, and I think there's a lot of fan conversation at the moment around, well, he's crap, he's been in forever, and he doesn't do anything, and he doesn't contribute that, and he doesn't do why. But then people don't realise the value of that experience in the changing room. People don't understand the value that Ashley Barnes brought to this team, the character, the leadership, the camaraderie, and that's unsexy. And that's the thing, that's not one for the football Twitter stat merchants, right? They're like, well, he hasn't done XG, people don't realise that. Kenny McLean, captain, out for a lot of this season with illness /injury / being ridiculously suspended.
Yeah.
Grant Hanley leaving the football club, who's been a linchpin in terms of behind the scenes, how much the players respect him, gone. And going back to that moment, that Wembley moment, there was 5 or 6 captains on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, you could say at the weekend, yes, Josh was given the captaincy. I enjoyed that. But he's not your what I'd call classic captain, right? And then our second port of call is Shane Duffy, who was late for a team meeting and didn't get. So I would say a lack of leadership was costly. I've seen, and we're going to go into the X question statements, rants, roads in a minute. And I've seen already there's a couple of people that are saying if Kenny McLean had started, that game doesn't pan out the way it does. And I would say correct. I'd say that was exactly the reason why Norwich City didn't accelerate and progress into the game, why we got the first goal, and all of a sudden it was, we need to be a bit careful here. And that's because you're lacking leaders.
And from a recruitment perspective, are you bringing those players in as like ready-made leaders, or are you nurturing them from within, or is it a bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both.
Right.
So like when Russell Martin comes into the club from League One from Peterborough all them years ago, you don't know what he's going to turn into be. You don't know the type he's going to be and the role model he's going to be. And you know he's a good player, you know he's a good character, but you don't really know he's going to be a Premier League manager and he's going to have that mindset and that kind of really want to drive. So yeah, it's about sometimes, and you know it's like when you get a group of people together, you just get that energy, don't you? And you kind of feel it rubbing off. So yeah, I think that's what recruitment, why it's so interesting, what made that successful and what didn't make that successful. And sometimes it's a little bit of character, it's where they are on their journey, but it's also the combination of everyone together as well.
And I think speaking of energy, without going down the hippie route, I think Ricky's right. I think the energy is off now because you've got players that have come into the football club. I use the term green bananas, Ricky. They're not quite ripe to eat yet, okay? They're not quite at that level that we need to be successful. Do you like that?
Yeah,
if Ricky likes the green banana analogy, I'm happy with that.
He's nodding to be polite.
Cool, perfect. So you've got that element. You've got the element of the fact that Johannes is a new coach. Again, the energy's not quite there yet. You've got the fans are still understanding what Johannes is trying to do with the squad that he's being given with all of the injuries. There's something that's coming up, Jack, and it's maybe not one for today's conversation, but we need to talk about it within the next couple of weeks. The atmosphere at Carrow Road is like a morgue again. So again, the energy's off there. It feels to me, I'll be honest, and I know a few of the players watch, but I've got to be honest, it's very evident that there's at least a handful of players in that dressing room that know they're done. They're off in the summer, and that's coming through in performances on the pitch. So I think it takes a Ricky Martin, a leader behind the scenes, to actually galvanise the club and get the energy back to where it needs to be, because it's obvious now that they don't believe they're going to get playoffs, because we just drew 1-1 to Oxford, which is unacceptable.
I think that sense of missed opportunities can
100%.
Right, let's get some questions. And Ricky, we put out on Twitter that some questions for you. Let's start with John Garland. He says, the view amongst many fans seems to be stay patient for now, as this is a transition season that will kick on next season, just like we did with Farke's second one. But is this putting too much pressure on next season, and will the team be able to handle it? It does feel as if, and I suspect you've been in, not just Norwich City, but other clubs before, where you're approaching a summer transfer window and the noise from outside the club is, well, if we get this window right, we'll be fine next season. And you're probably sat there going, oof, there's suddenly a lot of pressure at my door to make this work. And it does feel as if we're getting to that place with Norwich.
It's like anything, when you push it down the line, don't you? You push it, I'm going to do that next week, I'm going to do that next week, I'm going to do that next week. And then before you wake up and you think next week, what a busy week I've got, because I've pushed everything down the line. So I think that's, you got to be careful, because I do see some really good stuff going on at the club. I think Ben Napper's doing a really good job. I think it seems calm, it seems calculated, there seems to be a really good process. I think he's really articulate. I think he's got the respect of everyone at the training ground, but also in the stadium, and I think he's connecting everyone back up together. So I think it's going really well. He will be hoping that the players will kick on and they will develop a bit quicker. And as he starts to bring in these new players, that process will just speed up. But we've got to be careful we don't push everything to this era of next July. It's going to be unbelievable football. We're going to have no injuries. We're going to win 5-0 every week, because this is what's coming. Because there will be different challenges next season. You don't know what's going to happen. So there's going to be things where you need to be flexible and you need to be able to react to it.
So as a very qualified, very experienced person, there is a lot of conversation around, phases this, 5-year plans that, David Nally special. Yeah. Trust the process trust the process FC. That's the classic Arsenal one, isn't it? Ricky, should Norwich fans trust this process? Should we expect success next season? Is it fair to expect next season to be more successful, given that this season the groundwork has been done?
Yeah, I do.
Is that fair?
I think it is fair, and I think any season this club should be competing. Yeah, we've gone from them days of nearly going under and going into League One.
Yes.
And we're in a really good foundation. The foundations are really strong. Will you be in the top 2, top 3 every season? No, probably not. Okay, right. Let's be realistic as well. But should you be in the top 6 to 8? Yeah, I think you should be. And I think there'll be some seasons where your team will be going really good, and you'll be going into the playoffs thinking we've got a really strong squad and we could get through the playoffs. There'd be sometimes you go into the playoff and you'll be around that area of the league and you'll be thinking maybe we might not be as competitive as maybe one or two of the other teams. But it's quite ironic when I came out of the club, and I can understand when I came out. There's a change, and Alex came out, and there was a change in the club. We were 8th in the Championship, and it was seemed at the moment we weren't performing. But that's probably higher than where the squad are now.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
But it was right at the time. I could sense that because we'd just come out of the Premier League. We should have had a better squad to be back up in around the playoffs. But we were 8th. It weren't as if like we're 18th and falling at the bottom. And you kind of, when you look at that, you kind of a little bit of reality, and you look at the team now. They're 10th, I think, in the Championship. But it seems okay at the moment. But because they think it's that direction rather than doing that direction. So but next season I think there should be, in the club of this size and the foundations, the support base, the infrastructure, the players, the coaching, and the management team. Yeah, I think they need to be around the playoff group.
And it's funny how optics change. You know, David Wagner and that kind of reign that he had was deemed a fairly unsuccessful one. He got us into the playoffs. Yeah. We finished 6th. So I think this whole transition thing, there's a lot of hope put on the fact that under Farker, his first season we finished 15th. It was a very similar summer. We had Harrison Reed on loan who returned. We sold James Maddison. Angus Gunn was on loan and went back. And I think Norwich fans and football fans in general need hope, right? We need a reason to kind of stay connected. So I think we're all looking back to that and going, well, the next season that followed and bring in Buendia and Pukki, that's just going to happen again. I think we need a slight reality check, but of course that's possible. Like, that may well happen again. Who knows?
With you, Jack. We've got one here from Mark Cowboy. I'm not sure that is his second name, but I love it if it is anyway. He says, I believe we have a mentality problem. Back to the mentality problem again. In the last couple of seasons, the other teams score against us with no effort. Meanwhile, for us, it's like an SAS mission. Johannes Hoff-Turup should say to the team that we have to be like the SAS. Who dares wins.
Nice.
Ricky, what's your take on that? Like, if you're in and amongst it at the moment, the lads keep dropping points, how are you restarting the engine at this stage of the season when you're pushing for the playoffs?
It becomes a focus point, doesn't it, too much now? You know, you go 1-0 up the next game, play tomorrow night.
Tuesday night, yeah.
Go 1-0 up. What's it going to feel like for the next 5 minutes? It's going to be. So that's why I think you need to change your mindset. Go and attack, go and get the second goal, and then kind of break that hoodoo. Because if not, you kind of your mindset in you're looking for reinforcement. This is going to happen, and you just take one backward step. They get one corner. Everyone's here we go, and it becomes like a knock on. It becomes contagious between everyone in the stadium. So I think you just got to try and go and break this down and put this to one side and dealing with set plays and dealing with them kind of. I thought they were poorly overnight at set plays, and I felt that is something when you are in control of the game. That's the one area where another team can get back into it, because they can do it from an isolated position. like a throw on, like a free kick, and that's not momentum of building up like Norwich do so well.
We have been all season.
It's attacking set pieces as well, right? Because
both ways,
when you've got 77% possession, which was the highest number under Johannes so far, and you're not scoring corners, you're not even really threatening from corners.
Yeah,
that's a concern.
And there was this other conversation that formed, Jack, about the midfield after the Oxford game, because you're right, and it wasn't just Johannes, it was the most possession we've had in a game since, I don't know, Jesus Christ was born or something, right? It was a crazy stat. I don't know why I've gone down the religious avenue, but I have. But yeah, we couldn't break through the lines, Jack. And I don't think injuries are to blame for that. I think it's somewhat the coaching and the tactics and the style of play that's being told of the players. I also think it's the calibre and quality of the player that's in there.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be able to break a team out, and I'm not being respectful to Oxford. It's just standards. Like I respect what Oxford have done, but Norwich City should be beating them at home. And by the way, we shouldn't have lost them away as well. And the fact that we couldn't break through their lines, regardless of the personnel, that's the calibre of player, and that's also the opposition that we came up against as well. We should have done better than that.
Will Johannes be learning from these, or is he almost going to become scarred from it?
Well, surely some of these players are nailed to the cross now. Like, I mean, they're not good enough. They're not good enough. If Norwich City want to progress, we're going to have to move a lot of these players on in the summer.
I look back to, and you've probably got a say on this, Ricky. I go back to, let's go back to Alex Neil, and he played this progressive, front-footed style of football. And I remember being at St James's Park when we lost 6-2, and it felt like that was a moment where he almost became kind of scared and regressed. And
true.
I guess with hindsight, it's easy because you can always look back to key moments, but you just hope that Johannes sticks to his principles and sticks to his ways, and hopes that he can find a process rather than trying to completely switch things up.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think Bowen Signs scores that goal right at the end, and we win 2-1.
That was a great save, by the way.
It was really good.
I
mean, if that goes in, everyone feels a little bit. We got one there, we got back, and we got 3 points, and we're okay.
True.
Yeah. So it is moments, right? It's moments in the game. But he's been scoring goals like that early in the season and getting us wins. So yeah, I think it's that. He's got to believe in himself, and I'm sure he will. And he'll have the support from Ben and Neil and everyone at the training ground to reconfirm that, no, what you're doing is really good, and the style of play is probably some of the best football I've seen for the last couple of seasons. So I think everyone's happy with that. It's just now getting the game changers, the moments in the game where someone can pull out a save, someone can pull out a tackle, and someone can actually go and do something out of nothing and get a goal. Because if you get that moment, then you get them special kind of momentum going into games.
You're spot on, and you know, let's take a few moments from recent games. So unbelievable save to deny Science. So score that, you win. Blackburn Rovers, we concede last kick of the game. Manage to defend that, you win that. You go back to Derby. Oof. If Jack Stacey does something slightly different, you win that. And suddenly you're in the playoffs. But you're right, it's margins. And we've seen it with, and I know Leeds have just lost, but we've seen it with Leeds, and we saw it under the promotions that you would have overseen.
Yes.
Performances aren't necessarily like that different. It's just finding a moment, and then the momentum builds more moments, and suddenly you're in a roll, and you're going, well, we're in the 89th minute and we're drawing, but we've been here and we've found the winner before, and that just breeds a winning mentality.
But we haven't been able to get momentum this season because of all of the injuries, and this is where I do feel for Johannes. And we've got a couple of points on injuries. Let's quickly go back there again. It's a hot topic, Ricky. Manfred Wells says, question, how do we keep getting so many injuries? It can't just be a coincidence now. Surely it's something in training. I always, when someone says what's going on in training, I always, what's the famous, what's going on in training, Neil? Is the classic one, your friend Neil. Lewis Wynn says as well, we missed our chance to get in the top 6, drop points against poor opposition. Injuries have hampered the whole season. Let's go down maybe a slightly different tangent with the injuries this time, Ricky. Going to the summer window, surely Ben Napper's priority above anything else is signing players that aren't, for one, already injured or have a track record of injuries. Is it as simple as that?
No, you definitely do. Yeah, you want players that are robust. I call that being. You got to have a player that can demonstrate over the last 5 years what their availability rate is. So you're looking at all their other data, and I think that will start to come out now. So there's many talented players out there, but if they're not robust and you can't rely on them, then they're no good to anyone. So yeah, it's that balance of trying to get the talent, but also someone that can get on the pitch.
And they do exist, by the way. Look at Kellen Fisher, young player, gets kicked all game, every game. Would probably play with a broken leg, for God's sake. Like, these players do exist. They are able. They're out there, aren't they? So
well, I going to the complete other end of the spectrum. I look at Mo Salah this season. Right, they've just played PSG in the Champions League. They've got a bit of a dead rubber against Southampton. Slot plays in full 90 minutes still. There is no rotation in that Liverpool side. He's got his starting 11. He knows they're fit individuals, and he just plays them. There's not even a. And if Norwich can find that to a championship level, then you're on something. You're right; they are out there, these players.
Yes, absolutely, with you.
Where do we go here then from this point on? Because as we've mentioned in this podcast, it does feel as if we've tried to keep that hope of top six as a possibility. Well, I feel like that race has maybe run now. So what's the objective, Ricky, from now until this much anticipated summer transfer window? Because season ticket renewals are happening. You don't want interest to drop off. You want to keep certain players. You want to let certain players go. It must be, from an internal management perspective, quite a difficult task now to keep players motivated, to try and get them ready for next season, and also keeping fans on board. That's a tough task.
I don't think they've written off playoffs at the moment.
Do you not?
No, I don't.
They wouldn't have done internally.
No.
I mean, how far? Yeah.
But I think a lot of the fans have.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's the difference. And once you get that, but I don't think you're too many games away from deciding.
6 points away.
Yeah, but I don't think you're too many more matches before you feel,
okay,
is that 6 point gap still there? If that 6 point gap's still there in 4 games' time, you've only got 6 games left and you've got 6 points to make up. In a couple of games' time, you need to get that down to 5, then you need to get to 4 and so forth. And it's probably the number of teams that got in between Norwich and the playoff. That's probably the difference. Because if you just looked at a one-off, 2 teams going for each other, can you catch 6 points up on them? Of course you can.
Yeah. But
there's other teams, and that they're not all going to drop points. So that's probably where the challenge will be. So I think you'll know in the next 4 or 5 games. That's the good thing about the playoffs. It does keep more teams actively interested until the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse when you get the flip-flop game where players have got their flip-flops on, they're waiting to go on holiday, and you've got them couple games. And that only happens for them teams right in the middle of the table. But you'll know that come last 2 or 3 games. But regarding what the club needs to do, they need to really attack it to the end of the season, because they want to get momentum, they want to finish on a high, they want to keep the fans excited and really optimistic going into a new season, and I think also to attract players as well. I think you need to keep that going.
True.
So I think it's really important still, and I don't believe the players are thinking at the moment they're not making the playoffs. I feel if they go on a run now of 4 or 5 wins back to back. I think this week's a moving week, by the way. I do think this week's a really interesting week, because this is the week where you've got the week before the international break.
True.
You then got a little bit of a gap, but you've got 3 games this week, and I feel come Saturday, I think you'll know more. Or Friday, is it for?
Friday's Bristol City.
City. And again, they're one of the teams above you.
It makes that Oxford game even more frustrating.
Do you know the thing that Ricky said there as well, which I know we've briefly touched upon it. We're going to do it probably a little bit more in the next episode when we've not got a guest. I think what Ricky said is so important for the atmosphere, and it's linked to the season tickets. And by the way, hey, that's why there is probably more of an expectation, because Norwich City fans are paying a premium, and we are not getting a premium product, right? So, and by the way, they probably have to charge those season ticket fees, I might say. But anyway, keeping the atmosphere and the fans engaged and alive. I came out the stadium against Oxford, Jack, and I felt like my balloon had been burst. And I posted it on social media. I still stand by it. I think it's season over. I really do. And I pride myself on trying to be optimistic and positive. But even after sleeping on it, I think about our habits and behaviours and injuries and how knee deep in a transition and a whole cluster of things have gone against us this season. I can't get through the forest. I just can't see a way that we get into the playoffs anymore. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm embarrassed. I hope people clip this up and say, "Oh, I told you, Chris."
Yeah.
I just can't see it. So I'm pleased that you think internally that they haven't give up and they won't give up, Ricky. But I'm concerned now, Jack, because the atmosphere inside Carrow Road for the Oxford game, there was no one, barely anyone singing. It just felt like people were kind of just clapping along a little bit. It felt like almost the fans had gone, yeah, we know it ain't working today. That's a dangerous position to be in, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
At this stage of the season.
And I think it's fans and players have a similar issue here where you can almost sense what's coming next. The whole reason an atmosphere builds and excitement builds is because of the unexpected. When Norwich go 1-0 up, you go, well, that was in the script, so okay, like that's fine.
Okay.
And I feel like I know what's coming next, and that's not a good thing that's coming next. So I think that's part of it. Ricky, it's been a real pleasure.
No, it's been great.
What's next for you? Anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, just doing some consultancy work at the moment.
Brilliant.
And then waiting to get back in, and let's see what that happens to be. But no, it's been wonderful being here, and I hope Norwich continue to do well this season. But more importantly, let's look at next season, because everyone's looking for that now. So I'm sure the next 12 months will be good.
Thank you for being polite to us. Ricky did say before we started, shall I call you Dumb and Dumber?
And he would have been justified to say that.
So we've got away with that. And don't forget, #accidental. What was
opportunities?
#accidental opportunities. If you've watched the TNC podcast, let's see it. Ricky, thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, Ricky, and thank you for all of the work you did at Norwich City.
No
because
True.
over that 16 years you were at the club,
so
it was
important.
such a key period in my Norwich City supporting lifetime, and I had so many happy memories, and that was partly down to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.